you drag them out in front of CNN or some other liberal media that you leaked the information illegally to before you did the search, and so that they could film it in their underwear. What happened to our Justice Department?
Legitimate response.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. This is Legitimate Response, a little show I put together to kind of highlight some of the inner workings going on in the government. I kind of showcase congressmen and senators who I think are working for the American people to show some of the corruption that's going on in Congress right now. And that's what this whole show is all about. Informing the people to let them know exactly who they're voting for. Now, what we got coming up here is kind of a continuation of the last video. It was a hearing on the affidavit for the Mar-a-Lago raid. All the files and BS that Trump took with him to his freaking house for whatever reason. Oh, gosh. But he did it, and they want those files back. There's obviously some shady stuff going on with how they did it. They didn't have to do that. But like I said, they're going over this affidavit. And this congressman I'm highlighting here is Louie, which he's retiring after his term here. This is probably one of the last speeches he's going to give. So I figured I'd highlight it because he really has been kind of a big voice for unity in Congress. He hates the fact that they're at each other's throats all the time. The Congress should be working together. That's the power of the people right there. And they shouldn't be fighting each other on small little BS matters like this. You know, all they're wanting to know is what was in the affidavit. And the Democrats are fighting against it. They don't want it to get out for some reason, and we don't know why. But the Republicans, they're trying to see what was in that affidavit, and hey, I understand. Let's roll the clip and see what the hell he's talking about here.
We heard from the other side, when a judge says there's probable cause here and issues a warrant, you know that it's there. Well, I've been a judge, I've been a Chief Justice, and I know that's not the case. That's why we have appellate courts, and that's also particularly true when it comes to the persecution of candidate Donald Trump and President Donald Trump. We went for years before we found out the true basis of the 6 warrants. It was based on garbage, lies. There was no probable cause there, and we found out we had F.B.I. agents lying, even though one's been found not guilty. The jury said, well, they didn't, since everybody lies to the F.B.I., it shouldn't be a crime. Well, that's here in D.C., and that's a Democrat. A Republican, of course, would be convicted of that. But that's why our job is so important, because judges are not perfect. And let me just read you, after the deputy director of the F.B.I. that all of a sudden my Democrat fans are such huge fans of. Oh, and by the way, this information about the F.B.I. hiring a Putin lackey, Danchenko, that didn't come out in the Mueller report. So they either hid it or were incompetent in finding it. It didn't come out in the IG investigation. So he was either incompetent or just actually hid it. And it takes a special counsel 2 years after President Trump's out of office to finally reveal what happened 6 years ago in the Department of Justice dishonesty. And so let me just read from this letter dated September 11th, after the deputy director said, oh, no, there were no violations of security that compromised security. says, by issuing an absolute denial of your misconduct, talking the letters to Deputy Director Paul Abadi, you also implicitly claim that the two individuals who reported the misconduct made false statements. That assertion is false. Thinking back, you are certainly aware that many of your subordinates saw you wearing the phone in the skiff. Now your subordinates are coming forward and their reports are far more damning to you and Mr. Ray. You, Mr. Ray, and the employees on the 7th floor violated national security because you were all too lazy to secure your devices. You failed to set the example, and now you've become the example of what's wrong with the FBI. I was talking to an FBI, actually multiple FBI agents, but a former FBI agent said, you remember back in the 80s and 90s, if we needed somebody to report, we had an indictment, we would call their lawyer and say, you need to report at 9 or 10 or 1. Tomorrow we have an indictment, and they would show up to jail because they knew if they didn't, they'd come pick them up at home. What that's turned into now is it's actually the tactics the Gestapo used. Middle of the night, wee hours of the morning, you bust in, you drag them out of bed, and you don't let them even put on clothes. What happened to the FBI? You drag them out in front of CNN or some other liberal media that you leaked the information illegally to before you did the search, and so that they could film it in their underwear. What happened to our Justice Department? That was not the way they were. They had some decency about them, but they become so political. And I know if it ever turned around and it was Democrats, yes, I would be upset about that, like I was about criminal William Jefferson's activity, but the way he was treated and the violation here, and not one person on the Judiciary Committee has complained about a member of Congress's phone that has privileged information on it not going and being screened by House counsel before it's grabbed by the FBI. You are putting this body in jeopardy by not standing up for civil rights, and I appreciate my colleague. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Louie Gomert, his last rodeo. He likes to get caught up on old stuff. You know, he worked a lot in the 80s and in the 90s with the FBI and the DOJ when it was a totally different administration. It was a totally different FBI. And he seems to be disappointed greatly with how it's being run nowadays. And I can't say I disagree because, like I said in the last video, since those Twitter files have come out with all the FBI, you know, basically telling Twitter to shut down certain people, to ban them off Twitter. And it was only conservative voices, people on the right. How come they weren't shut down other people that were actively calling for violence? I don't understand that. And he makes a lot of good points right here. And especially when it comes to the 2016 election, when Trump got elected, they were investigating Trump as a Russian spy. I don't understand how they could get away with that. There hasn't been much repercussions from that till this day. There's been a few people fired. Nobody's been convicted on any charges, as far as I can tell, at least. And it's really a shame to see what has happened to the FBI. And, you know, I hate to say that, but I can't help but say it because it's true. There's a lot of shady stuff going on, and really wish it would come to a halt. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. Thanks for watching, and be positive. Peace.